Unaware of his wife's real identity as an heiress, her husband and groom's family humiliate her at their wedding reception. Then she cancels the $1 billion deal. He didn't just humiliate her. He did it in front of hundreds of people, under bright reception lights, while she stood in a white dress, still carrying the softness of love in her eyes. At their wedding reception, yes, their wedding, Ethan Cole lifted a champagne glass and laughed along as his family mocked Claire's modest upbringing, her simple taste, and her cheap-looking relatives. His mother joked that Claire brought a good heart instead of money. His brother joked she didn't know which fork to use. His co-worker Vanessa pressed herself against him, while guests whispered that she looked more like the real bride. Claire smiled through it all, her heart cracking behind the veil. What Ethan never knew, what none of them knew, was that the quiet woman they saw as plain and useful was the majority shareholder of a multi-billion-dollar empire, Adams Holdings, the very company the Cole family was desperately trying to partner with for a deal worth over $1 billion. That night, they toasted to their future, bragged about the partnership, and laughed at the girl they thought came with nothing. By the next business morning, while Ethan still believed he had married a powerless woman he could shape, manage, or quietly replace, Claire walked into a corporate boardroom under her real title. And when the Cole family arrived expecting a celebration of their billion-dollar deal, she placed evidence of their own words on the screen and said the sentence that shattered everything. Adams Holdings is withdrawing from the $1 billion partnership with Cole & Partners. He thought she was a nobody. He thought she was pliable. He thought she was his stepping stone. What he never realized was this: the woman he publicly belittled held the same pen that could rewrite his entire destiny. Dear viewers, thank you for being here. Watching without subscribing is like standing silent while Claire is mocked in a room full of people. When you subscribe, you stand with every person underestimated, every heart underpriced, and every quiet soul who chose dignity over acceptance. Please subscribe and tell me where you're watching from in the comments. Claire Adams had a last name worth $1 billion, and yet she was on her knees on a faded rug, pressing old shirts into a cardboard box like they were the only things that really belonged to her. The box was for charity, but it looked like something else too, a quiet attempt to strip her life down, piece by piece, to what was real. Claire was 29, slim, dark-haired, and soft-spoken. To the world outside this modest apartment, she was just Claire Adams, a project coordinator at an investment firm. In a city where Adams was as common as Smith, no one blinked at her surname. No private car outside, no designer labels on her shelves. Just clean walls, careful order, and a woman who had spent most of her life trying to prove she was more than her inheritance. On the nightstand, a photo watched her. In it, a much younger Claire stood in a construction helmet beside a tall man in a work jacket, both of them grinning under the metal frame of an unfinished building. The man was Daniel Adams, her father, founder of Adams Holdings, and the reason people whispered words like empire and fortune around her family. Her fingers paused on a worn blue hoodie, Daniel's hoodie. She pressed it to her chest for a second. The world outside might only see steel and glass when they heard Adams Holdings. Claire still saw this, her father laughing as dust floated through a factory, sleeves rolled up, hands dirty, telling her that none of this mattered without respect. When Claire was 14, Daniel had walked her through the main office of Adams Holdings. Phones rang, people moved fast, and the company logo, 3 simple metal lines fanning upward, shone on the wall. He introduced her to everyone just as Claire. Not Miss Adams, not the future owner, just Claire, he'd told the staff, shaking hands with a tall man in a dark suit, Mr. Grant, their longtime lawyer. Mr. Grant had smiled at her kindly, his tie slightly crooked, and whispered, "Your father has big plans for you." But Daniel never once said Heiress that day. Later in his office, he had leaned against his desk, serious for once. "If you ever want to know who truly respects you," he told her, "hide the part of you they can use." That line dug itself deep inside her. Years later, when Daniel's sudden heart failure left Margaret Adams, Claire's mother, as chairwoman, Claire became the majority shareholder by law. Lawyers like Mr. Grant walked her through numbers so big they barely felt real. Legal documents listed her as C.R. Adams, through a private family, trust her father's way of keeping her name out of the spotlight. She signed papers with shaking hands, formally owning more than half of the company he'd built from steel and sweat. The world expected a glamorous heiress to explode onto magazine covers. Instead, Claire asked for something simple: a quiet role in a smaller branch of the firm under a different trade name. No one there saw a majority shareholder on any badge. They just saw a disciplined perfectionist who didn't talk much about her family. She wanted to know who would treat her well when they thought she had nothing to offer. As she folded another shirt into the donation box, her phone buzzed on the nightstand. The screen lit up with a name: Mom. Margaret. Claire reached for it, wiping dust from her fingers. Margaret, board wants your temperature on the coal partnership before final signing. Compliance reminder: you still hold veto power. Her chest tightened. The coal partnership, a potential deal so huge it made even Adams Holdings move carefully. Cole and Partners, a mid-sized firm trying to grow fast, had approached Adams for a strategic investment. A partnership like that could change the Cole family's future forever. Months earlier, when the proposal first arrived, Claire had quietly informed compliance that she was dating one of their associates, Ethan Cole. The ethics team had logged the conflict, limited her access to financial negotiation details, but left one thing under her name exactly as Daniel had wanted: veto power over reputational risk. She read the line again: you still hold veto power. Her thumb hovered over the keyboard, but before she could reply, another notification slid across the top of the screen. It was a picture from Ethan. Ethan was 31, confident, clean-cut, and charming enough to make strangers open up in minutes. When he first met Claire at a charity event, he had called her refreshingly normal and laughed about fake rich kids. He didn't know he was talking to a real one. On Claire's phone, the photo showed Ethan at what looked like an office party. His arm was slung around a group of people, all dressed sharp. On his left side stood a woman with perfect hair and sharp eyes. She leaned into his shoulder, just a little too comfortably. The caption under the picture read, "Wish you were here, Claire. They all think we're the perfect couple." The woman beside him had a tag: Vanessa Reed. Claire had heard that name before. Vanessa was Ethan's co-worker, a fellow associate at his firm, always in his stories about late nights at the office and big accounts. Something in Claire's stomach nodded, even as she forced herself to smile. She zoomed in without meaning to. Vanessa wasn't just standing near him. Her hand rested lightly against his back, fingers pressing into his jacket. It was the kind of touch that knew where it belonged. Her phone lit again with a call. Lily. Lily was 28, Claire's best friend since high school, and the only person outside the family who knew all the truth. Lily worked as a nurse and had seen enough of human nature to recognize when people were pretending. "Hey," Lily said when Claire answered, her voice warm and bright. "You ready to be Mrs. Ethan Cole, or do I need to rescue you?" Claire laughed softly. "Too late. Engagement ring is on. No rescue now." "I saw Ethan's post," Lily replied. "That Vanessa woman is glued to his side. You sure you don't want me to trip her by accident at the wedding?" "She's just a co-worker," Claire said quickly, though her eyes stayed on the screen. "They work together, it's normal." Lily didn't push, but her silence said everything. "You're quiet," Claire added. "Just remember," Lily said gently, "the people who talk about status the most are often the ones who'll use anyone to climb. Just keep your eyes open, okay?" Claire promised she would. They hung up, and the apartment grew still again. She set the phone down next to the photo of her and Daniel. Now the two images sat side by side, her father's dusty factory smile and Ethan's polished party grin. One built metal frames, the other built arguments and deals. As if summoned by her thoughts, there was a knock on the door, 3 quick taps. Familiar. Claire's heart lifted a little. She stood, brushed invisible lint from her jeans, and opened the door. Ethan stepped in with his usual easy charm. Up close, he smelled of cologne and office air. He wore a well-cut suit, but his tie was tugged loose like he had just escaped a meeting. "Hey, you," he said, leaning in to kiss her. "Wow, you've been cleaning again. Place looks minimalist. Very you." "This is not cleaning," she said with a faint smile. "It's donating," I don't need half of this stuff. That's what I love about you, Ethan said, walking past her and glancing at the donation box. Low maintenance, not like some of the demanding women at my office. You don't care about labels or fancy parties. You're simple, in a good way. The word simple stung, just a little. He picked up the framed photo of her and Daniel. Ethan knew Daniel had been in business, but not how deep. Claire had told him her parents worked in investments. She hadn't told him they were Adams Holdings. That your dad? Ethan asked. Yes, she answered, voice soft. He built something big. He worked hard his whole life. Yeah? Ethan smiled politely, then put the picture down without more questions. Speaking of big things, my parents are excited to really meet you at the engagement dinner. Richard and Linda? Claire asked, repeating their names slowly. She had never met them, only heard stories. Yeah. He rolled his eyes with a grin. They can be intense, old school. They care a lot about appearances, status, all that nonsense. Don't worry if they seem crazy at first. He laughed like it was all harmless. Claire forced her shoulders to relax. I'm sure it'll be fine. He wrapped his arms around her waist. You're perfect for me, Claire. You're calm. You're humble. You don't come with drama. My parents will get used to your background. He said it lightly, already walking toward the door, checking his watch. He didn't see the way her expression froze for a second, like someone had pressed a thumb into a bruise. Gotta run, he added. Busy week. Big client. I'll text you about dinner time, okay? She nodded. Okay. Be safe. The door clicked shut behind him, leaving the apartment quiet again. Claire stood there, his words echoing in her head. Your background. In the photo, her father's eyes seemed to watch her. On the nightstand, her phone vibrated again with a reminder from Margaret about the coal partnership review. Far away, in a house she had never stepped into, Ethan's parents were already setting the table for the engagement dinner, sharpening opinions she did not know yet. Claire took a deep breath and picked up Daniel's hoodie from the box, the fabric soft under her fingers. She had no idea that the next time she met Ethan's world, it wouldn't feel like a welcome. It would feel like a test she was never meant to pass. The first cut came before the food even hit the table. Claire felt it like a sharp line across her chest when Linda Cole, Ethan's mother, looked her up and down and smiled with her teeth, not her eyes. So this is Claire, Linda said, standing at the head of the long dining table. The room was filled with old portraits and shiny decorations that tried very hard to look important. You have such simple taste, dear. It's refreshing. The word simple hung in the air. Claire forced a polite smile. She wore a soft blue dress, neat and modest. Not cheap, just quiet. She had chosen it on purpose, the kind that did not scream, Heiress. Ethan stood beside her, his hand resting lightly at her back. He was proud tonight, his posture straight, his voice confident. This was his family's home, his family's world. He was the bridge she had stepped onto, hoping it would lead to love, not a fall. Opposite Linda stood Richard Cole, Ethan's father. He was in his 50s, with sharp eyes and a businessman's handshake. Richard led the firm, now negotiating with a major investment group. That group was Adams Holdings, Claire's family company. But Richard did not know that. To him, Claire was just his son's modest fiancée. Next to Richard was Jason, Ethan's younger brother. Jason was in his late 20s, more relaxed, with a restless energy. He smirked as he poured himself a drink, watching Claire with open curiosity, like she was a new show. A few seats down sat Vanessa Reed, introduced as a close colleague and family friend. She smiled politely at Claire, but her hand lingered on Ethan's arm, a fraction too long when she greeted him. Ethan gently guided Claire to a chair near the center of the table. This is beautiful, Claire said genuinely. The table was laid with gleaming cutlery and folded napkins. Candles flickered. Everything screamed, "We are important. Please believe it." Linda brushed off the compliment. Oh, this? It's nothing. Once the big partnership comes through, we're planning a proper remodel. Something worthy of Ethan's future. Richard took his seat and nodded at Claire, like a boss assessing a junior employee. So, Claire, he said, picking up his glass. Ethan tells us your family works in, what was it, investments and construction? Claire kept her voice calm. Yes, my father built a company from those areas. My mother runs it now. Richard waved a hand, uninterested in detail. Ah, investments. Everyone plays with numbers these days. Well, as long as you'll support Ethan's career, that's what matters. Support Ethan's career. Not stand beside him, support him. Ethan laughed lightly, sitting down beside her. Dad, she's the most supportive person I know. Linda tilted her head. And where are your parents tonight, dear? Too busy for such humble events? They're both working late, Claire said. There's a big board review this week. It was true. Adams Holdings was in the middle of several major moves. One of them involved the man sitting in front of her, who had no idea his future was already partly in her hands. Linda exchanged a look with Richard that Claire caught but chose not to name. Board review. How serious, Linda said. Well, I hope they at least managed to gift you something for the engagement. Even if it's small. Claire smiled politely. Their gift is their blessing. That's enough for me. Jason chuckled. Don't worry, once the big partnership hits, you guys can finally upgrade. New house, new cars, new everything. He lifted his glass toward Ethan. Right, big brother? Ethan smiled, but his jaw tightened. We're doing fine, Jason. On a sideboard behind Richard, Claire's eyes landed on a stack of papers, half tucked into a leather folder. The top page was slightly turned. She could see the words printed clearly. Adams Holdings Strategic Partnership, Proposal Draft. Her heart skipped. There it was. Her world, printed in black ink in this room, where she was being treated like she had nothing. Richard noticed where she was looking and laughed, a little too loudly. Oh, that, just work, can't switch off, you know how it is. Linda patted his arm proudly. We're in talks with a major investment group, Claire, Adams Holdings. Probably the biggest chance this family firm has ever had. Once we close that, we move from small league to big league. Everything changes. He said Adams like it was some distant legend, not the name on Claire's birth certificate. He didn't ask if she had heard of them. He didn't imagine she could be connected in any real way. She looked too ordinary. Claire's phone buzzed softly in her purse. A short vibration she knew well. While Linda turned to instruct a server, Claire glanced down. A message from Lily. Lily, you okay? Want me to call with a fake emergency? Claire's lips twitched. Claire, I'm fine. Just being studied like a charity case. She slipped the phone away before anyone noticed. Love your dress, Linda said suddenly, eyes sharp again. Did you get it on sale? You're so practical. It's charming. Charming. Simple. Practical. Claire kept her voice steady. I picked it because I like it. Linda nodded slowly, like she was judging a child's drawing. Practical is good. Ethan needs stability, not someone who thinks she can outshine him. Ethan gave a nervous laugh. Mom. Richard cleared his throat, changing the subject. So, Claire, what exactly do your parents contribute? Financially? I mean, wedding, new place, things like that? Claire's fingers tightened on her napkin. She chose her words with care. They offered to help, she said. I told them we would manage. We're both working adults. We can build together. Linda's smile thinned. So, not much then. That's fine. As long as you're not expecting us to carry everything. Ethan is already doing enough. Silence pressed around the table for a moment. This was where he could have set a boundary. This was when he could have said, Claire brings more than you know. Instead, Ethan laughed, tense, but still playing along. Mom, don't be harsh, he said. Claire knows what she's getting into. He said it with a joking tone, but the words cut. Claire turned her head, watching his face. She saw the truth hidden under the joke. He needed their approval more than he needed to protect her feelings. He didn't see the small crack forming in her trust. The rest of the meal blurred into polite questions and forced laughter. Linda compared houses. Richard spoke about numbers. Jason made little jabs about some people not knowing which fork to use. Claire answered when needed, quiet and polite, letting their words wash over her like cold water. Later, after dessert, she excused herself to find the bathroom. The hallway was lined with more portraits, all of serious men in suits. As she walked past Richard's study, she heard low voices through the half-closed door. Vanessa's voice came first, smooth, amused. "She's sweet," Vanessa said. "But do you really see yourself with her when your firm becomes big league?" Ethan's answer came, quiet but clear. "One thing at a time, Vanessa," he said. "Let's lock in the partnership first." Claire stopped outside the door, her hand frozen on the handle, her heart pounding so loud she could barely hear anything else. She had come tonight thinking this dinner was about family and love. Now she realized it might be about something else entirely. And soon, at the wedding reception, those same voices would have a much bigger audience. Claire felt the blow before she even turned, an eruption of cheers, clinking glasses, and flashing lights that hit her like a spotlight she never asked for. The wedding reception was alive, bright, and loud. Music rolled through the hall, guests toasted in clusters, and laughter spilled like champagne across the room. But in the center of it all, in her white dress, Claire stood frozen for one breath too long. It felt like stepping onto a stage she didn't know would turn into her public undoing. Ethan was at her side, smiling wide, shaking hands, hugging relatives. As always, he fit perfectly into any crowd. Claire tried to match his smile, but her eyes moved carefully across the guests, searching, questioning, wondering who was genuinely happy for her and who was just there for the spectacle. A photographer called them over for family photos. "Bride and groom first," he shouted. Claire took Ethan's hand, and they posed together. Then Vanessa. "Come in too," Linda called, waving eagerly. "You're practically part of the family at the firm." A few guests chuckled, assuming it was harmless. Vanessa Reed, Ethan's co-worker, beautiful, confident, and far too comfortable, slid into the frame as if she belonged there. She placed her hand on Ethan's shoulder, standing closer than a normal colleague would. The camera flashed. Claire blinked, stunned. She had warned herself after the engagement dinner not to overthink Vanessa's closeness, but seeing it again, on the day she became Ethan's wife, made something deep inside her tighten. Behind her, Jason snorted under his breath. "Guess the firm has 2 brides today." A woman at the next table leaned toward her friend and whispered, just loud enough for Claire to catch, "Honestly, that co-worker looks more like the real bride than she does." Another flash. Claire's expression stayed calm, trained, practiced. The photographer moved on, but the tension stayed. Then came the toasts. Jason swaggered up first with a glass raised high. He grinned mischievously, Ethan's younger brother, always the joker, always pushing boundaries he knew she couldn't react to without looking uptight. "So everyone," Jason began loudly, "let's talk about Claire, the sweetest girl with the most modest upbringing I've ever seen. Honestly, when I first met her, she froze at the table because she didn't know which fork to use." Some guests laughed, others shifted uncomfortably. Claire felt her face burn. Ethan rubbed his forehead, embarrassed, but he didn't tell Jason to stop. He didn't correct him. He didn't defend her. Jason continued, "But hey, that's okay. She's learning." Slowly. A few more chuckles. Someone murmured, "Oh, Jason," like it was just harmless fun. Linda was next, stepping forward with practiced charm. "Oh, Claire," she said, her voice dripping with exaggerated affection. "You may not come from money like some." Her eyes flicked briefly toward Vanessa, then back. "But you bring a good heart, and that matters too." The phrasing was soft enough to pass as a compliment, sharp enough to pierce. A couple of relatives clapped. One guest whispered, "Backhanded, much?" under their breath. Claire forced a smile even as her chest tightened painfully. She looked at Ethan, pleading silently for him to intervene, to say something, anything that showed he had her back. He gave a tight, uncomfortable smile but stayed silent, his arm around her waist like she was part of the decoration instead of his partner. Claire inhaled slowly. Her dress felt heavier with every breath. Next came Vanessa. She walked to the microphone with easy confidence, her sleek dress catching the lights. "Well," Vanessa said. "I guess it's my turn to congratulate the man I've worked with for years." She shot Ethan a knowing look. "Ethan is the most ambitious man I've ever known." Ethan smiled awkwardly. "And don't worry, Claire," Vanessa added brightly. "I only get him during office hours. 9 to 5 is mine, after all." Some guests laughed, some winced. A few glanced at Claire, checking her reaction. Claire's smile wavered. Her heart felt like glass pressed under a hammer. At one of the side tables, Lily quietly lifted her phone and started recording. She'd seen enough speeches go wrong to know evidence was better than memory. The DJ called for more music. People drifted back to their tables. Claire mumbled something about checking on the cake and slipped away, her steps careful and measured. By the cake table, she found a pocket of stillness. The towering dessert sat perfectly decorated, untouched. It looked more stable than she felt. Then she heard voices again. Richard and Linda were nearby, talking loudly to a small circle of guests. Their words carried easily. Richard said proudly, "Once the Adams Holdings partnership is signed, our firm finally becomes a major player. Ethan made this happen. He's the reason we're finally moving up." Claire's eyes widened, her breath catching. Linda laughed softly. "After that, we'll help them into a proper house. Maybe polish Claire up a bit. She doesn't realize yet how lucky she is. Poor thing would never see this kind of life without Ethan." Another round of polite laughter. Claire's hands trembled slightly as she steadied herself on the table edge. Richard reached into his jacket, pulling out a folded document notes from the partnership deal. The Adams Holdings logo gleamed under the lights, the same 3 metal lines Claire had grown up seeing on her father's office walls. They were bragging about becoming powerful through a woman they believed had nothing. They had no idea she was the one who would have to sign. Her heart pounded, anger, humiliation, disbelief colliding inside her. Her phone buzzed. Claire blinked away the sting in her eyes and pulled it out with shaking fingers. A text from Margaret. "Final signing, scheduled tomorrow at 10 a.m. We still need your signature as majority shareholder. If anything doesn't feel right with the Cole family, we can walk away. No deal is worth our name. Walk away." Her breath hitched. Her eyes filled, not spilling over, just gathering like a storm about to break. Behind her, another wave of laughter erupted. Jason was telling a fresh joke about her cute little education and learning to fit in. Claire stared at her phone, her pulse echoing in her ears. She had thought this day was the start of something beautiful. Instead, it felt like she was watching the truth of everything she had ignored. She swallowed hard, wiped a tear before it fell, and looked up across the room. Vanessa had her hand on Ethan's arm again. He didn't move it away. Claire's entire world was tilting, but not collapsing. Not yet. In the back of her mind, a quiet thought surfaced, almost a whisper. If this is how they treat the girl they think is powerless, what will they do when they learn who she really is? A question that would soon have an answer, and tomorrow that answer might ruin their future. Claire pushed through the ladies' restroom door as if the air outside had turned poisonous. It swung shut behind her, muffling the music and laughter. She stumbled toward the mirror, gripping the sink with both hands. Her wedding dress, white, delicate, chosen with love, was smudged at the waist from too many hands pulling her into forced hugs. Her lipstick was blurred at the corners from holding in words she didn't dare say into a microphone. It was supposed to be the happiest day of her life. Instead, it felt like she had walked willingly into a trap. Her breath came fast, chest rising and falling. The face in the mirror didn't look like a bride, it looked like a woman, cracking under the weight of humiliation she never saw coming. She reached for a tissue, trying to fix her makeup, but her hands shook. Her mascara smeared further, black lines staining her cheeks. Then a memory struck, sharp, sudden, and blinding. 7-year-old Claire stood beside her father, Daniel Adams, in the grand lobby of Adams Holdings. He was introducing her to employees with a proud hand on her shoulder. "This is Claire," Daniel said warmly. "Not Heiress, not future owner. Just Claire." As they walked away, a pair of visitors whispered behind them. "That's Adam's daughter, right? Lucky kid. She won't need a personality with an inheritance like that." Young Claire looked down at her shoes, wishing she were invisible. Daniel noticed. Later in his office, he knelt to her level, his eyes steady. Promise me something, he said gently. Never stay where your worth is treated like a joke. You hear me? She nodded, though she didn't fully understand. At a school event, classmates who had ignored her suddenly clung to her the moment they learned her last name. Compliments poured in, fake and sticky. She felt like a golden ticket, not a person. She began to hide her identity, stopped saying Adams Holdings, started calling herself Claire Adams, nothing more, and let people assume it was just a coincidence. When Daniel died and Margaret became chairwoman, Claire became the majority shareholder quietly, privately. Legal filings hid her behind a trust. She signed documents in boardrooms but walked home in simple clothes, building a life where no one chased her for status. She wanted someone who loved the version of her that had no money on display. Then Ethan had appeared at a charity event, charming, warm, full of praise. You're different from the rich girls, he had told her. You're real. For the first time, she felt seen not for her last name, but for her heart. Back to present, a tear rolled down her cheek, falling silently onto the sink. Another followed, then another. The bathroom door opened quietly, and Lily slipped inside. Lily's face was soft with concern, her dress slightly wrinkled from dancing and pacing. Without asking permission, she locked the door behind them. Claire, Lily whispered, stepping closer. This isn't okay. I know you're trying to be strong, but what they did out there, that wasn't teasing. That was disrespect. Claire didn't speak. She stared at her reflection, eyes red, lips trembling. Lily took a breath, then pulled out her phone. I recorded some of the speeches. I didn't plan to, but when Jason started, I had a bad feeling. You need to hear what they sound like from the outside. Claire hesitated, part of her still wanting to protect the fantasy she had built, but she nodded. Lily played a clip. Jason's voice filled the small, tiled room. She didn't even know which fork to use, but she's learning, bless her. Laughter followed, loud and cruel in the echo of the bathroom. Claire squeezed the edge of the sink. Another clip. Linda's voice now. She may not bring money, but at least she brings a good heart. Ethan has always been generous. More laughter. A clink of glasses. Then, Lily opened another video, this one recorded near the bar, when Claire had stepped away earlier to greet relatives. Ethan's face appeared on screen, slightly flushed, talking to a colleague off camera. Vanessa was beside him, sipping her drink. Ethan's voice. Claire? She's sweet, innocent. She thinks she understands wealth, but once this partnership hits, she'll finally see real luxury. Vanessa laughed. You're too good to her. She's lucky you chose her. The clip ended there. Claire's hand flew to her mouth. Tears streamed freely now. The man she married had been laughing behind her back, laughing at her simplicity, her trust, her love. Lily squeezed her shoulder. You deserve better, Claire. You deserve someone who defends you even when you're not in the room. For a long moment, Claire said nothing. Then something inside her shifted quietly but powerfully. The last piece of blind devotion slipped away, leaving behind a woman who finally saw the truth. She wiped her tears with slow, steady movements, straightened her back, adjusted her dress. Her breathing calmed. A thought rose in her mind, steady as her father's voice. They weren't laughing at my dress or my parents. They were laughing at the woman they thought could never walk away. Claire lifted her chin, her hands stopped shaking. Her reflection looked different now, no longer wounded, but awakening. She pulled out her phone and clicked on Margaret's name. When her mother answered, Claire's voice was calm, strong, absolute. Stop the signing tomorrow, she said. Put everything on hold, and tell Mr. Grant I'll come in myself to explain why. She hung up, then she lifted her eyes to the mirror again. Somewhere outside the bathroom door, the crowd roared with applause as the DJ announced the next dance. Soon, they would be clapping for something else. Claire entered the glass-walled conference room with more composure than she felt inside. She had barely slept. The wedding dress now hung in her wardrobe like a costume from someone else's life. She'd traded it for a simple dark blouse and tailored trousers, her hair pulled back neatly. Only the faint redness around her eyes betrayed the night she'd just lived through. The moment she stepped into Adams Holdings headquarters, the minimal white space, the quiet hum of printers, The company logo etched into the glass, something inside her straightened. This was her world. Her father's world. Her name. Her power. And today, that power was being tested. She sat at the long table, still feeling the ghost weight of her wedding ring. Her finger felt lighter. Her chest did not. Across from her sat Margaret Adams, her mother poised, controlled, sharp-minded. In her early 50s, Margaret carried authority effortlessly, her presence filling the room without raising her voice. Beside her was Mr. Grant, their longtime lawyer, steady-eyed and calm. Next to him sat Mr. Heiress, a senior board member in his 60s, a numbers man. A man who evaluated risks faster than most people read headlines. A compliance officer, Miss Patel, sat near the end, a file open and ready. On the table rested a stack of folders. Mr. Grant broke the silence first. "Claire," he said gently, "we gathered everything you requested overnight. The financial reality of Cole and Partners isn't as strong as their pitch." Margaret slid a folder toward her daughter. "See for yourself." Claire opened it. Pending loans, delayed payments, overconfident growth projections, and a heavy, undeniable dependency on one thing: the Adams partnership. Mr. Heiress cleared his throat. "They've already signaled to their small investors that they expect exponential growth once a major institution signs on. Their entire expansion plan depends on us. Without the partnership, they can survive, but they'll have to scale back hard. Their talk about leapfrogging competitors is wishful thinking." Claire felt a jolt of understanding. "So they were never seeing me," she murmured. "They were seeing access." Margaret softened slightly. "They underestimated you, Claire. They assumed you were just an employee at a small branch. They assumed you had no influence here. They behaved accordingly." Miss Patel, the compliance officer, folded her hands. "When you informed us you were dating Ethan Cole, we ring-fenced you from negotiations to avoid a conflict of interest. But your father's veto clause, attached to reputational risk, still sits with you as majority shareholder." Mr. Grant tapped a page labeled Ethics and Reputation Policy. "If a partner's conduct is harmful, disrespectful, or likely to damage our public image," he said, "you have every legal right to halt or cancel the deal. The board can recommend, but you are the final signature." Claire swallowed. Her mind flashed back to the reception, Jason's jokes, Linda's condescension, Vanessa's smug 9-to-5 line, Ethan's laughter about real luxury, the way no one had stepped in. Lily's video clips were now saved in a secure folder Mr. Grant had already reviewed. "I don't want revenge," Claire said quietly. "I don't want headlines. I just don't want the Adams name tied to people who think that way about others, or about me." Margaret nodded. "This isn't about personal hurt, even if the hurt is real. It's about the culture they've shown us. They see people as rungs on a ladder, not partners." Mr. Heiress looked at Claire gently. "We can go ahead with the signing, renegotiate terms, or walk away completely." Miss Patel added, "For now, we've only told Cole and Partners that today is a final review before signing. We haven't warned them about any change in direction. Until you decide, we keep it neutral. The board will support whatever you decide as long as we can explain it with facts." Mr. Grant glanced at his notes. "The recordings from last night, the engagement dinner incident you described, and their internal posture all create a picture. They expected to gain status from us, while privately speaking with contempt about our shareholder." Claire closed her eyes for a moment. A small part of her still felt the weight of what she had believed about Ethan. The kindness he had shown early on, the jokes, the quiet evenings, cooking together in her small kitchen. Ending everything in a boardroom felt both empowering and heartbreaking. Mr. Grant, sensing her struggle, reached into his briefcase. He placed a thin stack of documents in front of her. "Separate from the partnership," he said quietly, "these are the initial papers for a petition to dissolve the marriage. We prepared them because you asked what your options were last night." Claire stared at the papers. Her hand trembled as she touched the first page, then rested flat against it. Mr. Heiress spoke gently. "No one here will push you either way. This room is where you decide what you can live with." Her wedding finger caught the light as she slowly turned it. Bare now, remembering the ring that had sat there yesterday. Was she ready to let go? Of Ethan? Of the carefully constructed story she'd told herself? Of the hope that he might change when the pressure eased? Her breath deepened. "I thought he loved me," she whispered. Margaret placed a hand over hers. "He loved the comfort of you, not the responsibility of respecting you." Claire's eyes glistened, but she didn't cry. She stared at the partnership folder one more time, then at the ethics policy. Something inside her hardened, not cold, not cruel, just clear. Mr. Grant waited. "The question is," he said, voice steady, "are you ready to let go of Ethan completely and treat this like any other risky partner?" The room fell silent. Claire lifted her eyes. Her answer was forming, solid and inevitable, but she wasn't ready to speak it yet. Instead, she asked a different question, one that made everyone pause. "What happens," Claire asked quietly, "when the Cole family discovers the deal is being canceled by the woman they mocked at their own son's wedding?" A long, heavy silence settled over the room. In that silence, a line was quietly drawn, and on the other side of it, a confrontation was already waiting. Claire slammed the evidence folder onto the small conference table, so hard that Lily jumped. The room was tucked deep inside Adams Holdings' legal wing, its frosted glass walls turning the rest of the floor into shifting silhouettes. A single overhead light glowed above them, throwing hard edges on the stack of files and the large screen mounted on the wall. "Let's start," Claire said. Her voice was steady now, no tears, no tremors, just a controlled fire. Lily, her best friend, still in the same dress from the night before, hair pulled into a messy ponytail, pulled out her phone and plugged it into the HDMI cable. She spoke softly, but her hands moved fast. "Claire, I saved everything I could from the reception," Lily said, "just in case you needed more than your memory." The first video appeared on the screen. Linda's voice rang out clearly. "She may not bring much money, but at least she brings a good heart." Guests laughed. In the video, Claire stood there in her wedding dress, smiling politely while humiliation wrapped around her like a spotlight. Claire's jaw tightened, but she didn't look away. Lily clicked to the next clip. Linda again, off mic but loud enough. "Her relatives look cheap, don't they? I hope they don't ruin the pictures." Another soft ripple of laughter from the guests in the background. Lily paused the video. "There's more. But before I show you the rest, check this." She unplugged her phone and handed Claire her own. "What am I looking at?" Claire asked. "Open your messages," Lily said. "That family group chat Linda added you to for seating charts. You said you muted it ages ago." "You hardly ever replied," Lily added. "I think they forgot you could read everything." Claire frowned, instinctively unlocking her phone. There it was. Cole family plus Vanessa Linda had created it weeks before the wedding to coordinate times, outfits, and logistics. Claire had glanced at the essentials, then muted the endless chatter. Her thumb hovered. Then she tapped it. The chat history flooded the screen. Lily mirrored it onto the large monitor. Old messages scrolled up, planning, jokes, photo attachments. Then Lily slowed near a particular section. "Ethan. Marrying Claire is strategic. She's connected to investments, whether she realizes it or not. Once everything lines up, we're in." Richard. "Exactly. Once Adams approves the partnership, our firm levels up. Ethan, this is your chance to secure our future." Linda. "She's plain, but at least she won't challenge you. Better than someone like Vanessa, too opinionated." Vanessa. "Don't worry. I know my role. Just don't forget who's been next to you in the grind." Claire felt each line cut through her. Lily swallowed. "Keep going." Claire scrolled further. Another block of text. "Ethan. Once we're locked in with Adams, we can restructure things so Claire doesn't have so much say, if she even has any. She's pliable. She trusts me." The word pliable glowed in blue on the screen. Claire stared at it for a long second. Pliable, bendable, easy to steer. Her father's voice rose in her memory. "Never stay where your worth is treated like a joke." Her fingers tightened, but her voice stayed even. "Save screenshots of that entire section," she said. "Email it to Mr. Grant's secure address." Lily nodded and did exactly that. The door opened quietly, and Mr. Grant stepped in, carrying a thick binder. He glanced at the screen, then at Claire's face, putting pieces together instantly. "I see you started without me," he said. Claire gestured toward the monitor. "They added me to the chat. They never thought I'd scroll back." Mr. Grant set the binder down and opened it. Inside, documents had been tabbed and labeled. "I've organized everything into 3 categories," he said. "Public humiliation, internal intent, and strategic exploitation." He flipped pages as he spoke. Category 1, recordings from last night. Category 2, these messages. He nodded at the screen. Category 3, their financial over-reliance on us, which Mr. Heiress already outlined. He looked at Claire. "This isn't just a bad in-law situation," he said calmly. "This is a reputational threat. If we go through with the deal, we tie Adams Holdings to a culture that mocks a key shareholder and treats her like a stepping stone." Lily crossed her arms. "So cancel it. They deserve it." Claire didn't respond immediately. She looked up at the message. "She's pliable. She trusts me." Narration flickered in her thoughts. They thought I was pliable. They forgot who taught me to bend metal and build empires. Her expression hardened, not cruel, just sure. Mr. Grant closed the binder halfway. "The board will stand behind your decision, whatever it is. The ethics clause is clear. We'll document the rationale: conduct, contempt, risk." A soft knock sounded at the door. An Adams assistant stepped in. "Miss Adams," she said, "the Cole family has arrived for the final review and expected signing. They're in the summit room waiting." The air tightened. Claire stood. "We're not finished," she told Lily and Mr. Grant. "We're just changing the audience." She took one last look at the messages on the screen, then nodded to the assistant. "Let's go." The summit room tensed the second the Cole family walked in. Richard Cole pushed through the glass doors first, his suit pressed and his expression smug. Linda followed close behind, necklace shining, face arranged into a smile that assumed victory. Jason trailed them in, less polished, more curious. Vanessa Reed walked beside Ethan, not quite touching him, but close enough that anyone watching could guess she'd been there through all the late nights. An assistant from Cole and Partners carried a leather case stuffed with documents they believed would seal their future. "This is it," Richard said under his breath, clapping Ethan's shoulder. "Once this is done, we start shopping for that new house. Something appropriate for our new status." Linda chuckled. "Maybe Vanessa can help choose the interior. She has an eye." Vanessa smiled faintly. Ethan gave a shallow laugh but didn't correct them. They stepped fully inside and stopped. The room was not set for a celebration. It was set like a formal review. A long polished table stretched down the center. At the far end sat Adams Holdings representatives: Margaret Adams, Mr. Heiress, Miss Patel, and Mr. Grant. At the head of the table, where a senior executive or chair would usually sit, was Claire. She was no longer in a wedding dress. She wore a dark, tailored suit, her hair neatly tied back, her expression calm. No trace of last night's fragility remained. In front of her, a nameplate gleamed. Claire Adams, majority shareholder. Her wedding ring was not on her hand. It lay on the table beside a closed folder. For a moment, the only sound was the faint hum of the projector waiting to be turned on. Richard blinked. "Claire," he said, forcing a chuckle, "what are you doing up there?" Ethan's brows nodded. "Claire, I thought you said you worked in one of the smaller branches. What is—" Margaret spoke before Claire did, her voice cool and measured. "She does," Margaret said. "She chose to. That doesn't change who she is." "Mr. Heiress added calmly, "Claire Adams is the majority shareholder of Adams Holdings and holds final approval on this partnership." The words landed like a slap. Linda's smile faltered. Vanessa's jaw tightened. Jason's eyebrows shot up. Then he leaned back, watching the unfolding drama like a live show he hadn't paid for. Ethan stared at Claire. "You're the majority? Claire, why didn't you—" Claire finally spoke. "To see how you'd treat someone you thought had nothing to offer," she said softly. Richard shook his head, recovering just enough bluster to bluff. Look, this is clearly some internal matter. We were told this was a final review before signing. It is, Mr. Grant said. This is the review. Claire tapped a key on the laptop in front of her. The projector flickered to life, casting the first slide on the screen behind her. Evidence of conduct. Cole and Partners and Associates. Before we discuss any signing, Claire said, voice clear, we need to assess whether this partnership aligns with Adams Holdings' ethics and reputation standards. She clicked to the next slide. A video filled the screen, Lily's recording from the reception. Jason's voice echoed through the summit room. When I first met her, she didn't even know which fork to use. But hey, she's learning. Slowly. Laughter followed from unseen wedding guests. On screen, Claire's wedding smile flickered. Jason shifted uncomfortably in his seat, the replay of his own voice hitting harder than he expected. It was just a joke, he muttered. Claire didn't comment. She clicked again. Linda appeared on screen, champagne in hand. She may not bring money, but at least she brings a good heart. Ethan has always been generous. A couple of faint chuckles followed. In the summit room, no one laughed. Linda's face flushed. That was taken out of context, she said sharply. It was a toast. Everyone knew I was just. The next slide cut her off. A screenshot of the Cole family plus Vanessa group chat appeared, enlarged enough that no one could pretend they couldn't read it. Ethan. Marrying Claire is strategic. She has connections she doesn't even realize. Richard. Exactly. Once Adams approves the partnership, our firm levels up. Linda. She's plain, but at least she won't challenge you. Better than someone like Vanessa, too opinionated. Vanessa. Don't worry, I know my role. Just don't forget who's been next to you in the grind. Silence. Richard's mouth opened and closed. Those were private family messages, he snapped. You can't use those in a... You added me to that chat, Claire said quietly. To send rehearsal details. You just assumed I wouldn't read anything else. Mr. Grant spoke evenly. As a participant, Miss, Adams is fully within her rights to retain and present these messages to assess partner suitability. Claire clicked again. Another screenshot from the same chat appeared. Ethan. Once we're locked in with Adams, we can restructure things so Claire doesn't have so much say, if she even has any. She's pliable. She trusts me. The word pliable glowed like an accusation across the wall. Ethan's face drained of color. I didn't mean Claire. That was just... You meant it enough to type it, Claire said, her tone still calm. Vanessa sat rigid, her eyes darting between Ethan and the screen. Claire turned to the final slide, a highlighted section of the Adams Holdings Ethics and Reputation Policy. The line in bold, the majority shareholder may cancel or refuse any partnership if the partner's conduct presents a reputational, ethical, or cultural risk to the company or its key stakeholders. Narration whispered inside Claire's chest. They thought they were building their future on the back of a powerless girl. They didn't realize she was the one holding the floodgate. She turned off the projector. The room dimmed slightly without the white glare. She folded her hands on the table. Based on your conduct, she said, voice slow and precise, and under the terms of this clause, she took a breath. I've made my decision regarding the partnership. Every eye in the room fixed on her. The air felt thick, waiting. Claire's words fell into the silence like a verdict. Adams Holdings is formally withdrawing from the $1 billion partnership with Cole and Partners. For a moment, the room didn't react. It was as if sound itself had stopped. Then everything happened at once. Gasps, scraping chairs, papers rustling in panicked hands. Linda's hand flew to her mouth. Richard surged to his feet so fast his chair toppled backward. You can't do that, Richard exploded. We have you have a non-binding letter of intent, Mr. Grant interrupted calmly. Subject to final approval by this board and the majority shareholder. You were informed of this in writing. Mr. Heiress added, you built your plans on expectations, not guarantees. That was your risk, not ours. Richard's face turned red. We've already told our investors, he shouted. We've hired new staff, expanded our office, started projects. Claire, listen to me. This will destroy us. Margaret stood slowly, her expression controlled. You destroyed your own credibility, she said. We simply declined to fund it. Linda turned on Ethan, her voice breaking. What did you say in that chat? What did you do? Ethan barely heard her. He was staring at Claire, stunned. Claire? His voice cracked. You're Adams? As in, that Adams? You're the heiress? She met his eyes. No, she said softly. I'm the woman you humiliated and underestimated. She let that hang for a breath. Then she added calmly, the heiress is just the part that makes this hurt you back. Ethan staggered slightly, like the floor had shifted under him. An assistant from Adams Holdings stepped quietly into the room, holding a sealed envelope. For Mr. Ethan Cole, she said. Ethan took it with numb hands and tore it open. His eyes skimmed the first page. His throat worked, but no sound came out. Mr. Grant spoke, his tone professional, but not unkind. That is a formal notice of intent to dissolve the marriage, he explained. It includes a draft petition our firm will file with the court. I advise you to obtain your own counsel. Linda turned on Claire, anger and fear mixing together. You're ending his career and his marriage in the same breath? Do you know what this will do to us? Claire's voice stayed level. I'm not responsible for what you built on lies, assumptions, and arrogance, she said. You mocked my family, my education, my background. You treated me like a pawn in a game I never agreed to play. I'm choosing not to fund that. Richard lunged forward again. We can apologize, he said desperately. We'll make a public statement, Will. Margaret shook her head. You're not sorry you did it, she said. You're sorry you did it to the wrong person. Vanessa quietly slid her chair back from the table, as if trying to make herself smaller. Ethan, clutching the envelope, stepped toward Claire. Claire, please, he said. Just talk to me alone. We can fix this. I didn't cheat. Vanessa is... She's just... This isn't the place, Miss Patel interjected firmly. This meeting is concluded. Claire gathered her documents with calm, deliberate movements. She stood. I'm protecting the Adams name, she said. And I'm choosing myself. She looked once, briefly, at Ethan. You chose your ambition, your silence, and your comfort, she said softly. We just made different choices. She walked toward the door. An assistant opened it for her. Claire, Ethan called after her. She didn't answer. Narration rose behind her steps. Endings are loudest for the people who never saw them coming. For me, it was just a door I finally decided to close. As the door shut behind her with a soft click, chaos erupted again on the other side. Richard's phone started ringing an investor, by the urgency in his voice as he answered. Another notification sounded on his assistant's tablet. An email with the subject line clarification on rumored deal collapse? The consequences had already begun. Ethan caught up to Claire in the hallway, his footsteps uneven on the polished floor. Claire, wait, he called, reaching out. His fingers closed around her wrist, not with force, but with desperate insistence. The glass walls around them reflected fragments of the summit room. Richard pacing, Linda gesturing wildly, Margaret sitting back down with the board, already pivoting to next steps. Assistants moved in and out, faces tight. Claire turned slowly to face him. Her expression wasn't angry. It was worse, calm. Ethan took a shaky breath. You can't just destroy my family over some jokes, he said. You're overreacting. I didn't know you were Adams. If I had known. She cut him off quietly but sharply. Exactly. He blinked. What? Claire's voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. If you had known who I was, you would have treated me differently, she said. Your parents would have treated me differently. Vanessa wouldn't have dared to humiliate me in front of a crowd. Jason would have swallowed his jokes. You all would have performed respect instead of feeling it. Ethan flinched. And that, Claire continued, is the problem. He ran a hand through his hair, the envelope from Mr. Grant crumpling in his other fist. Claire, I love you, he said, voice cracking. I was stressed. My parents were pressuring me. Vanessa was just flirting. I didn't encourage it the way you think. My family is old-fashioned. It's not my fault. I didn't think. No, she said. You didn't. A faint sound came from the far end of the hallway. Vanessa had stepped out of the summit room too, frozen halfway down the hall, clearly having heard enough to know this was not a conversation she should walk into. She hovered, guilt and calculation warring on her face. Claire went on, her words gentle but piercing. I wanted a husband who would defend me even when I had nothing, she said. Someone who stood beside me because of who I am, not what my last name is worth. Her eyes shone, but no tears fell. But you, she continued, defended your comfort, your image, your silence, and your billion-dollar dream. She took a small step back. You defended everything except me. Ethan's shoulders sagged. I didn't cheat on you, he said weakly, as if that solved everything. You didn't have to, she replied. You let someone else feel more entitled to your side than your own wife did. Vanessa looked down at her shoes. Ethan reached for Claire's hand. We can repair this, he pleaded. Tell your mother the deal doesn't have to be canceled. We'll issue a statement. I'll apologize publicly. I'll sit my parents down. Cut ties with Vanessa. Anything you want. Just don't end us. Claire studied him for a long, quiet moment. Then she slipped her wedding ring out of her pocket. She'd brought it, but she hadn't put it back on. Slowly, she placed it in his open palm. He stared at it. Small, circular, heavy. Claire. His voice broke. Please don't do this. Her voice was soft, but the words were unshakable. I forgive you, Ethan. He froze. She repeated calmly. I forgive you. Not for you, for me. I don't want to carry this anger for the rest of my life. Hope flickered in his eyes. But forgiveness, she added, does not mean I stay. The hope died as quickly as it had come. She stepped back again. Vanessa instinctively moved out of her way, pressing herself closer to the glass wall. Claire, don't walk away, Ethan begged. Please. She looked at him one last time. I walked away, she said quietly, the moment you showed me what I meant to you. Then she turned and walked down the hallway, heels clicking in a steady rhythm. She didn't look back. Ethan stood frozen, the ring biting into his palm, the envelope still crumpled in his other hand. Behind him, he could hear his mother's raised voice through the glass demanding answers he didn't know how to give. Vanessa watched Claire disappear around the corner, then looked at Ethan with something like pity. The man she'd attached herself to had just lost the very foundation of his power. That evening, hours after the summit room showdown, Claire sat on her couch, wrapped in a soft blanket. The apartment felt different now, stripped of illusions. The same faded rug, the same clean shelves, but the air felt lighter. Her phone rang. Lily, Claire answered. Hey, you need to see this, Lily said. No small talk. She flipped her camera to her laptop screen. A news article glowed. Adams Holdings walks away from billion-dollar deal over ethics concerns. Sources cite disrespect toward key shareholder. Claire's breath caught. Lily scrolled. Sources close to the negotiations, the article read, report that senior figures in the potential partner firm engaged in repeated disrespectful behavior toward an Adams Holdings majority shareholder at private events, prompting a last-minute withdrawal on ethical grounds. The comments section churned below. Who insults a major shareholder at her own wedding? If this is true, Cole and Partners is done. Imagine throwing away $1 billion deal for ego. Team Claire, even if we don't know who she is. Lily turned the camera back to her face. You're trending without a name, she said softly. They don't know it's you, but they know someone like you exists. Claire exhaled slowly. They think I destroyed them, she murmured. You protected yourself, Lily replied, and a lot of people watching will learn from that. The world had started to find out, and this was only the beginning. The first sound was the echo of her heels, steady, confident, familiar. Weeks later, Claire walked through the main hallway of one of Adams Holdings' development facilities. Sunlight poured in through tall windows. Workers in safety vests and office staff in ID badges moved around her, busy but relaxed. "Morning, Miss Adams," a technician called with an easy smile. "Good morning, Daniel," she answered, remembering his name without looking at his badge. She stopped at a workstation where a junior engineer was frowning at a set of plans. "Stuck?" Claire asked. "A little," the young woman admitted. "I'm trying to balance cost with sustainability, but the numbers are tight." Claire leaned in, asked a couple of precise questions, then pointed gently at a detail on the page. "Try shifting this instead," she suggested. "You'll save more long-term without cutting safety." The woman's face lit up. "Thank you." Claire smiled and moved on. From a distance, Margaret and Mr. Grant watched. "She's grown stronger," Margaret said quietly. Mr. Grant nodded. She stopped apologizing for her worth. Claire didn't walk like someone carrying a scandal. She walked like someone who had passed a brutal test and come out aligned with herself. Narration floated gently around her steps. "People said I canceled a billion-dollar deal out of spite. They were wrong. I canceled a promise that was built on disrespect." Sometime later, in a bright meeting room, Claire stood by a whiteboard as Lily scribbled ideas with colorful markers. On the top of the board, Lily had written in big letters, "Rebuild." Pilot program underneath. Bullet points. Legal support for women leaving financially abusive marriages. Short-term housing assistance. Career counseling and microloans. Workshops on recognizing red flags and strategic relationships. "Do you know how many people this is going to help?" Lily said, turning to her, eyes sparkling. "That's the point," Claire replied. "I can't change what happened to me, but I can help someone else walk away sooner than I did." They shared a quiet, satisfied smile. Claire wasn't just rebuilding her own life now. She was building a bridge for others. Later, alone in her office, Claire opened a small wooden box from her top drawer. Inside lay a single photo of Daniel Adams in his old work jacket, grinning with dust on his sleeves. She touched the edge gently. Flashbacks layered over the image. Daniel's hand resting on her shoulder in the lobby. Daniel telling her to hide what others could use. Daniel saying, "Never stay where your worth is treated like a joke." And another memory, quieter. "One day," he told her, "someone will try to buy your silence with comfort. On that day, remember your dignity is the only fortune that can't be taken." Claire closed her eyes and let the memory settle. "I remembered, Dad," she whispered. She closed the box and slid it back into the drawer. A peaceful smile touched her lips. She stood, walked to the window, and looked out over the city, not from a place of loneliness, but from a place of ownership. In a smaller part of the city, far from glass towers, Ethan sat in a cramped office with peeling paint and old blinds that wouldn't quite close. The name on the glass door was different now, a small consulting firm trying to stay afloat. Cole and Partners had survived the blow, but it had been forced to downsize, merge pieces, and swallow humiliation. The grand expansion never came. On Ethan's desk, an article glowed on his computer screen. Adams Holdings majority shareholder, praise for ethical stand. Industry calls it a new standard for partnerships. A photo of Claire at a recent panel discussion accompanied the piece, calm, confident, speaking about integrity in business. They called her a private majority shareholder, not by name, but he knew every line of her face. His shoulders sagged. His phone buzzed with an email notification, another rejection from a potential client who had concerns about past headlines. He let it sit. On the corner of his desk lay a small velvet ring box. He opened it. The wedding ring sat inside, unused now, a circle that never completed its promise. He closed the box again. He had gambled everything on a future built on arrogance and assumption, and he had lost the only person who might have chosen him for who he was, not what he could gain. Somewhere else, in a well-lit cafe with plants in every corner, Vanessa posed for a picture with a man whose posture was relaxed, not predatory. He worked in education, not finance. His shirt sleeves were rolled up, his laugh soft. She posted the photo with a simple caption, "Learning to choose character over connections." She didn't mention Ethan, not in the caption, not in the comments, not even in the tags. Her expression was calmer, less sharp. She had learned through the collapse, the headlines, and the silence that proximity to power without ethics isn't safety. In their once grand living room, the Cole house felt smaller. Some of the expensive art had quietly disappeared from the walls, sold, traded, sacrificed to keep things afloat. A stack of letters sat on the coffee table. Notices from investors, legal correspondence, demanding emails. Richard paced in tired circles, phone pressed to his ear. "I understand," he was saying, for what sounded like the 100th time. "We're restructuring. Yes, the Adams deal fell through, but we have other options. No, it wasn't our fault." The caller hung up. He stared at the dead phone line, breathing hard. Linda sat on the couch, tablet in her lap. An article headline stared back at her. "Rumored wedding insults to major shareholder, allegedly triggered deal collapse." She read the line again and again. The jokes, the toasts, the assumptions. She pressed a hand to her forehead. "We thought she was nothing," she whispered. No one answered. They had built their future on the belief that Claire was insignificant. Now they lived in the echo of that mistake. Back at Adams Holdings, Claire stepped outside onto a terrace bathed in late afternoon light. The city stretched out beneath her construction cranes, finished towers, streets full of people who would never know the full story, only the headline version. She took a deep breath. Narration wrapped softly around her like a final lesson. They thought they were humiliating a nobody at a wedding. They were, in fact, failing the final test of the one person holding their future. She walked toward the edge of the terrace, stopping just shy of the railing, the wind catching her hair. "I didn't ruin them," she thought. "I just stopped funding people who laughed at my worth." She turned slightly, as if addressing an unseen audience, every person who'd ever been underestimated, every quiet soul watching from their own small apartments. "If someone only respects you when they know what you're worth on paper," she said in her mind, clear as glass, "walk away before they spend your value like it belongs to them." I hope you enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoyed creating it. Like, share, and comment on the lessons you've learned. Let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. See you in my next video.